Today was a big deal. I don't know if we have this. I'm sorry, guys. I mentioned it before, but then we didn't have it. But maybe you could be quick on the ball on this. But libs of TikTok, libs of TikTok over on X. Seem to have found Idaho. I think they've boosted some information and some stuff that's happening in Idaho over the last year or so. But last night they Libs of TikTok account boosted up the fact that Representative Ted Hill introduced this bill that would essentially, it doesn't explicitly say it in there, but everybody read the writing on the wall that it said this will ban pride flags and BLM flags from schools. Here it is. You guys are awesome. Here is Libs of TikTok, and they highlight the bill. They have I don't know where they got this photo of Representative Hill, but that seems years ago. Anyway, regardless, that's what they did, and so that got the attention. I don't know. I can't see how many views it's got, but it went around. Libs of TikTok is a huge account. So Brian Allman saw it as well. And of course, being in Idaho, we're paying attention to this more so than most. Brian, how cool was that to see that Libs of TikTok tweet last night? Oh, we got you on mute.
There we go. It's good to see Idaho getting attention for good reasons, not for bad ones. Sometimes you see states make national news for doing something embarrassing or cringe or just going the wrong direction. But this is good that we're going in the right direction. And you mentioned that's an old picture. I sent the tweet over to Representative Hill yesterday, and he recognized that. He said, "Yeah, that's an old picture. I don't have hair now."
Yeah, you guys are the Bald Brothers, right? You
guys, District 14 is the Bald District.
That's right. Josh Tanner as well, and Grow's almost there. That's funny. Okay, we digress. Okay, so let's set this up here because this bill is fairly simple. I mean, the entire bill was in that tweet. You could read the whole thing of it's basically what is going to be allowed in schools, right? I mean, is that kind of how the bill is laid out here?
Mm-hmm. It's the way I read it is it's being proactive, saying these flags will be allowed and nothing else. National flags, state flags, tribal flags, school flags, military flags. But it seems like the point is to make sure we don't have these schools that we always see on things like Libs of TikTok, where you've got BLM flags, pride flags, transgender flags, and all those things, which really, I think, contrary to the message that they say it is of inclusion, it really is a message of exclusion. It's saying that we promote these behaviors, these identities, these political views over others.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's the point that Ted Hill made in his closing remarks. We may post up the entire hearing later on the channel today, but we want to highlight these closing remarks to reflect exactly what you just said. After quite a couple of people, the room wasn't packed today with folks testifying against the bill, but they kept talking about how this was all about inclusion and having these flags in there gives people a sense of inclusion. And what you just pointed out and what Ted pointed out, we want to take a look at that. So go ahead and roll that.
Well, Mr. Chairman, some of that testimony makes me think about the term inclusion. That term is it gets to be a little bit frustrating. Inclusion. So we have one person in a class. We're going to have a pride flag or a communist flag or whatever. It doesn't include me. It doesn't include anybody else. It includes just one person. The American flag includes everybody. That's what's important. So this inclusion thing, that term always makes me uncomfortable. I say it's a cudgel of control. You will do this. You will take this. You will accept this, whatever that might be. And there's even a pedophile flag, for God's sakes. So if we're not going to draw a line, let's put the 50 flagpoles around here, and let's put all the communist flags and everything else up in the classroom. Let's make it even. If you let one in, you got to let them all. So that's the backside of this. Well, what about this? I'm going to say, yeah, okay, let's put all those flags in and see how that goes. And when Mr. Clark said that's spot on. We need to have this in our classrooms to bring us together, to unite. I'm adamant about this. I see what was happening to in my military days. I'm seeing the loss of patriotism and the warrior ethos. And it's a declining empire. What's a declining empire? It's a lack of unity. And this inclusion around whatever that might be, it doesn't include everybody. It includes one or two people, but that flag includes everybody. Liberty and justice for all. And that's what it's so important. And Adam, about to get our classroom back online. So remember the slippery slopes. If we don't do this, okay, let's get the flagpoles out. Let's put them up in here. Is there a rule that says we can't put them in here? I don't know. Maybe we should start doing that. So this is a really important thing. And I'm going to finish off with that. Remember what the objective of this is. This is what we need to do to bring our kids back into the fold, get our patriotism back, bring our national strength back to where we need. And that will close with that. I just hope you can send this to the House with the due pass recommendations, sir.
Very good. Very good. So Brian, so that was a very passionate defense of the bill. And really, talking about like unify it. What a great way to unify students and unify teachers and unify our community by waving the American flag and saying, this is what we're all about.
Yeah, it's goes to a question of what's the purpose of schools. Some of the people who testified against the bill, both from the public and also the Democratic legislators, they were trying to say that pride flags and BLM flags are about inclusion, and they're not about political viewpoints. But what are they trying to include? They're trying to promote one thing above everything else. Whereas I think Representative Hill was actually absolutely right that the American flag is the one thing that unites everybody in those rooms, no matter what their national origin is, or who their parents are, or how much money they have, or whatever. They're all Americans. All the students are Americans, and hopefully here in Idaho, they're all Idahoans too. So the state flag as well can be that unifying symbol as well.
Yes, and you speak from experience because we can see behind you, you have the American flag and it's very apropos today, Brian, very apropos. Yes, and now there was, I don't want to say that there was pushback, but there was some folks on the panel that thought that perhaps in the committee that thought that maybe this thing didn't go too far in terms of what can be flown and whatnot, and so there was an interesting moment when Representative Tony Wisniewski pushed back on this a little bit about potentially waving the flag of an adversary during a time of war. Let's watch some of this.
If a person were to fly a flag in the future in a hypothetical case of a nation that we are at war with, that becomes an act of treason. To supply aid and comfort to the enemy is an act of treason. Yet this particular legislation allows that. I wonder if that has been a consideration in that particular phrase. I would be 100% in favor of this legislation if we were to just strike line 20, which allows the flag of any other nation to be flown in our classrooms. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, so I think eventually, Brian, that became a secondary motion, right? That was he wanted to send it to amending orders. Can you explain that a little bit?
So in the committee, they have the option to either send it to the floor with a recommendation to pass. They could send it to the floor with no recommendation, which has the same outcome. They could kill it, just hold it in committee, or they can move to send it to the amending order. In the House, it's called general orders, and the House will convene at some point in the session and take up all the bills that have been sent there. And at that point, it's fair game for anybody. Anybody can make any amendments they want to the bills. And so it's a very risky proposition to send a bill there. And I think some of the representatives made that point that they were worried about what would happen if it went there. But, Representative Wisniewski did move to send it there. That motion failed. So the bill was sent to the floor as is. You can see where he's coming from, though. It sounded like the previous bill last year didn't have the provision for international flags, for foreign flags. And several legislators asked Representative Hill to make sure that's in there. Say you're teaching a history class and you have
Sure.
flags from the different countries you're studying, or like somebody brought up in the committee, you're a Spanish class and you hang up a Mexican flag on when you have a party. So he wanted to make sure to avoid doing that. But of course, then as Representative Wisniewski pointed out, that opens you up to what if we go to war with China? Can a school hang up the Chinese flag? That's basically, as he said, essentially treason, right?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I recall my daughter last year in one of her classes, they did like a tour around the world. And so she would come home that week and be like, we were in Thailand, and of course they had the Taiwanese or the Thailand flag in, or at least a representation of it. They were coloring different. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing where like, the sort of like purist or extremist says, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. How can we ban this and still allow that? And it's like I think a lot of this stuff is just common sense, right? I mean, is there a fine or what's the punishment mechanism in this bill, or is there one?
Well, that's the interesting thing. There is no enforcement mechanism in the bill. And one of the members of the committee asked Representative Hill about that. And he said that he didn't want to come down with, the heavy hand of government, policing school buildings. He just wanted the legislature to tell school districts and school teachers what they need to be doing in their classrooms as far as what kind of flags to hang up. So we'll actually see what happens. If this does end up passing and gets the governor's signature and becomes law, what does that mean? What if a teacher hangs up a pride flag and tries to defy the law? What's the recourse there? I really don't know. I think it was it Representative Wisniewski or someone, Representative Mark Sauter said that this seems more like a resolution than a bill because there's no actual enforcement in there. Right.
But I don't know. I still think that if, for instance, the picture you just painted, if this passes and there's no punishment mechanism, the fact that it's simply in statute and that you can point to that teacher and say, this is not allowed. They'd have a hard time, holding that up, and maybe it would be up to them to sue to keep it up. Again, it's all different sorts of scenarios to say like, you are violating the law. This is not what we do in Idaho, and that's not the spirit of it. And so yeah, so I don't necessarily think we need that's my personal opinion, which is irrelevant for this program, but
I think that shows the difference between Representative Hill's perspective and say Representative Wisniewski. Representative Hill, he's all about the big picture. What are we trying to do here? We want to improve patriotism, bring back patriotism and the love of country, and get rid of all that divisive nonsense. Whereas Representative Wisniewski, he's going to be focusing a little more on the details. Well, what about this? What about this? And both are valid and both are important, and that's why the legislative process is important to figure out exactly what this law is and what it's going to do and what are the potential unintended consequences.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's good. And these are the kind of debates that we want to have. So now to that point with the motion here, Representative Dale Earnhardt, Dale Earnhardt. I knew I was going to do that someday. I know. God, rest in peace, Dale. Dale Hawkins. I knew, man, that it's been 3 years. I had never said that publicly, but that was always in my head. Okay, let's move on. Let's just show the clip. Let's see what Dale said.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't be supporting the substitute motion as well. I'm fearful of what would happen to the bill, to be honest. I want to support the original motion. And there's been a lot said today, and some of it that I'm not quite sure I can lay hold of from our colleague that no official flag or color or anything exists in our K through 12 schools would be a terrifying thing to realize, because I'm pretty sure they all have them painted on their gyms and they all have things that they pass out at sporting events. I do not believe that the word official indicates that they have filed for a trademark, which is a whole different situation. I think we lose context here of the bill author's idea, and that's to put back into the forefront of what we are doing in the classroom. I keep hearing all this stuff about what we're doing in the classroom, and we hear these words like inclusion. The gentleman from the second floor, I'm pretty sure last year, and I mentioned this the other day, spoke at the State of the State congratulating Idaho from ridding K through 12 of DEI. And if I'm mistaken on that, I invite the correction. I'd be glad to be wrong. But our job is not to be diverse in doing equity and doing inclusion. Our job is to do math and reading and history and social studies, and that's where we're failing. Now, why are we failing? Why are our numbers so low? What I would contend is we've loaded the classroom with everything but reading, writing, arithmetic, history, and sciences, these things that we started out in education. It used to be on the back of our plates here, Section 1 of Article 9, which is our job here, the stability of a Republican form of government depending mainly upon the intelligence of the people. We are here to do rules and laws, put things into code that help educators educate. And I think if we take out all the confusion of the classroom and put up the U.S. flag and the state flag, I realize this bill does contain some information that allows for the other stuff. And we hope that'll be used responsibly. So I will be going with the original motion if we make it that far. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, very good. And I'm glad we get to play the full clips here on this show. I mean, some people like to cut stuff down, but I want you guys to hear exactly what your representatives are saying out there. Very good. Brian, a lot of good stuff in there, but I think what was really great was, Representative Barbara Ehart. She was in support of this bill, and she referenced something that happened last year in committee that raised a lot of eyebrows. And so she asked permission to share it again, and so we'll play that clip in a second here, and then she just kind of brings it home for us on the committee here. So let's watch Representative Ehart.
Basically, as the teacher from CUNA, I'm leaving her name out, testified that she's told us, I apologize if I get emotional for a minute because I'm going to tell you why they don't feel safe. My LGBT students are violently, physically assaulted daily at school. They're being called slurs constantly. Their classmates say things like all queer people should be rounded up and shot. And as this is going on, we're asking, well, why aren't you reporting it? Oh, we report it. The administration doesn't do anything. Oh, the SRR doesn't do anything. Apparently the superintendent didn't do anything. And then come to find out, they were listening to all this. They were pretty fired up because they were doing things. It was all false. And I would like and suggest that anyone, when you come in front of this committee, I do hope that we have truthful testimony because it matters. Everything I do, I try to be truthful. And I've been waiting a year to bring this back up because I was pretty bothered by it and had wanted to deal with it last year, and someone else had said they're going to deal with it. So that's why I'm bringing it up now. That the flag, the LGBT flag, does not bring violence to students. The American flag certainly doesn't, and the American flag is far more unifying, or should be far more unifying than any other flag out there. Remember, it's not about one group of students, about all of our students. All of our kids, and that's what we should be worrying about. And anything that distracts from the students as a whole, why would we want it there? Anyway, Representative Hill, when I asked you what your point was for this legislation, you very eloquently expressed that. And to unify our kids, patriotism, all of that. I am very glad that you brought this bill. My only regret is that I didn't. So I will be supporting this wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. And for the committee, the benefit of the committee, it has been brought to my attention, and I agree. The bill is.
Yeah, very good. Very, very, very good words there, Brian. Any comments on that?
Well, Representative Ehart has really been. She's really been stepping out and taking fire for her position on these issues. First, there was the resolution honoring the Boise State women's volleyball team for not playing against a team with a male athlete, and now she's coming out hard against these claims that LGBT students are being violently, physically assaulted every single day in public school classrooms. I mean, imagine if that actually was true. That would be a huge scandal. But even if it were true, does hanging a pride flag in the school classroom fix that?
I don't see how it would.
But no, she's Representative Ehart's definitely going to draw some fire now from the usual suspects. She's stepped out. She's become a national figure now on these issues, and I'm sure she's ready to take it. She's strong.
Yeah. She is. We applaud her for it. We love her here. We love having her here. So and she'll be back on the show as well. All right, fantastic. Well, this bill, it sailed through the committee there. I think the tally was 12-2.
Party line vote. All the Republicans voted in favor, even Representative Wisniewski, who had some issues with it, and the two Democrats voted against.
That's right. So it'll be sent to the floor as is with a do pass recommendation, and we'll watch it on the floor probably next week or so as they start to fill up the docket over there. Okay, folks, we've got some other things happening in the committees we want to get through, so we'll take a short break and we'll be right back.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government and what we were tasked to do.